To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Orthwein? Here. Vice Mayor Stanley?
Here.
Mayor Morgan?
Here.
And let the record show that absent with notice are Mr. Lyons and Mrs. White, and also present the town manager, Gregory Dunham, the town attorney, Edward Nazaro, and the police chief, Edward Allen, and myself.
Thank you very much. We've been presented with the minutes from our last meeting on November 8th. Are there any additions, changes, comments? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes from the last commission meeting.
Second.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Orthwein? Yes. Vice Mayor Stanley?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. I don't believe there's any changes to the agenda, except we're waiting for Mr. Hockman to, he's stuck in traffic, so we'll fit him in when he arrives. Our next meeting is January 10th at 9 a.m. for anyone who wishes to attend. Let's move now to Mayor's proclamation for election. Ms. Taylor.
Yes. Whereas the town charter of the town of Gulfstream, Florida requires that a town election be held on the second Tuesday in March on any year in which a vacancy or vacancies are occasioned by the expiration or early termination of the terms of office of commissioner. And whereas the date of the 2020 municipal election was changed to the third Tuesday in March in order to conform to the March 17, 2020 presidential primary date with the adoption of ordinance number 19/3. And whereas the terms of the town commissioners are expiring in March 2020, now therefore, I, Scott Morgan, do hereby proclaim the following. An election will be held on Tuesday, March the 17th, 2020, for the purpose of electing 5 town commissioners who shall hold office for a term of 3 years, beginning on Friday, March the 20th, 2020 at noon. The election shall be held in the town hall of the town of Gulfstream, Florida, located at 100 C Road in Gulfstream, and the polling place shall be open between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Only qualified registered voters of the town of Gulfstream shall be allowed to vote in this selection. Any person who desires to have his or her name placed upon the official ballot shall file with the town clerk beginning at noon on December the 3rd, 2019, and no later than noon on December 17th, 2019, a petition signed by at least 4 qualified electors of the town of Gulfstream requesting such person to become a candidate for such office. A copy of this proclamation shall be posted on the town bulletin board at least 30 days prior to the day of election. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the town of Gulfstream, Florida, to be affixed this 13th day of December, 2019. Signed, Scott W. Morgan, Mayor.
So proclaimed. Thank you very much. Public comment. Anyone wish to speak? Okay, moving on to town managers' reports. We have a number of them. First is utility update.
Thank you, Mayor, and I do have Mr. Steve Rosa, and Jeff is here also with him from their subcontractor to give an update on the...
Yes, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
As of to date, we have 35 out of the 100 homes have pipe that's been installed from the vaults out front to the side of the houses. You know as well as I do, we had the king tide, which caused some issues with some of the houses where we were digging. You know, when you dig down a foot and next thing you know you hit water, you need to stop, wait until the tide comes down. So we've had to adjust for the tides. Our ultimate goal was to be done by the end of this year, but with the holidays coming up, we really don't want to have diggers in somebody's yard while they have company. So I do believe between Christmas and New Year's, we're probably not gonna be doing any digging into town, but we'll pick it up back in January. We should get it, hopefully, we should get another 30 homes done before the end of this month, so we'll be at the 2/3, 4th at that. I would like to have it done by the end of the year, but I don't see that happening. Any question?
Then once you return to finish the remaining third,
We'll return, probably the second week, because January 1st is what, Wednesday?
yeah.
So the following Monday, we'll start out here again.
And then how long do you expect to complete?
What do you suspect, another?
Minus a couple one-offs, access issues, especially along Ocean, a lot of gated community properties. We should, within a week or two, and like I said, there might be a couple that we have to, kind of chase a little bit for access issues, but hopefully 2 weeks after that, we'll be done.
So by the end of January,
Hopefully by the end of
February?
January. Yeah,
That's
yes.
great,
Yes.
great. Appreciate you guys coming in and updating.
No problem. And you guys have a safe and happy holiday.
Merry Christmas.
And,
Anything else to add to underground?
yeah,
Did you have an extra address?
I did.
Did you just, okay, I'll just take that. Was that the general info?
Yes. Okay. That's it. Oh, I'll get it.
Okay, so, thank you.
Mr. Gunn, anything more to report?
Yes, Mayor, with respect to AT&T, I'm expecting probably about the same time that they'll be finishing up their work. They're continuing to finish their splicing. And I think I mentioned to you last time the DOT had shut them down for work on Ocean Avenue because of the underground connections. I think we're not in the place that everyone expected them to be, but that's all been solved. So now they're working on A1A. So as you remember, AT&T does not have to do the work in the yards when they finish their splicing and finish putting their material or their structures in the right of way. They'll be done. And so it looks like the timing on this is probably going to be around the same time that Comcast is predicting. So good, that's where we're at. And they had the same problems. I mean, they were out working diligently. I mean, every block seemed to have an AT&T truck, and then they ran into the same high tide or high groundwater, and they couldn't do the boring that they were having to do. So, but they started back. So
There have been some comments from residents, just anecdotally, about the AT&T or box, no kind of boxes, I think they may even share, that are now evident around town.
right.
Can those be covered? Can foliage be placed around them, or are there restrictions, limitations on what can be done?
No, I mean, like the transformers for FP&L, many people have put vegetation around those. Some have left some space, that if need be, FP&L can get to them. Some have totally surrounded it. If you put vegetation around them, then you're kind of doing that at risk. I mean, if there is a need for them to come out there and get into those pedestals and the boxes, then, and if they have to, they would remove it. But around those, if they're getting into those, I think they can probably work around the vegetation.
But the plantings are not something the town is going to do, that would be the resident themselves.
Yes, I mean, we normally would not put any vegetation around a utility structure or like that they put in.
Okay, yeah, that was just a question that was asked. Anything else on underground?
Nope.
Okay.
That's it.
If not, I see Attorney Hockman is here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Jeff, got stuck in traffic, but not a problem at all.
Broward County is not perfect in the morning.
Well, we're glad you could make it. I asked Attorney Jeff Hockman to come and speak to us today about the decision in the DeMartini case. It's one of great significance, not just to the town, but
Good morning.
Morning.
So the 11th Circuit, which is an appellate court for the United States government, looked at the DiMartini case and the lower court's opinion, finding that there was no proper claim by Ms. DiMartini. We went on appeal, and the appellate court affirmed the lower court determining.
Hey, Jeff, you may want to get up to the microphone.
Unless you want to hold it, it's up to
No,
you.
it's okay.
Okay.
And they're just, I don't think many of the residents, the commissioners do. The residents probably don't really know even the facts of the DiMartini case, so you may want to just.
I would encourage you to get the full flavor to read the 73-page opinion by the appellate court. What basically happened is Ms. DiMartini, who had been working with Mr. O'Boyle for an organization, had filed numerous public records requests and also filed numerous lawsuits against the town. The town thought it appropriate, in order to defend itself, to investigate what was really going on. It hired 2 lawyers to do that. Both lawyers determined, with the help of an insider at their organization, that there was some sort of effort to extort money from the town. Those 2 lawyers recommended the filing of a federal civil RICO matter. That lawsuit was filed. The federal court determined that even though the conduct was inappropriate by these individuals, that there was no federal claim, meaning a criminal claim, that could serve as the predicate criminal act for the RICO claim. That determination said you can't go after them for federal RICO. When that case was dismissed, Ms. DiMartini decided that by seeking that remedy, the town had retaliated against her and violated her First Amendment right to expression, to use the court system. And this case was about that, whether she had a valid claim against the town for violating her First Amendment right. And the lower court said, no, you can't do that unless you show the town had no probable cause to file the lawsuit against you. And the lower court found the town did have probable cause. You were engaged in a scheme, or part of this effort to get a windfall, using the Florida public records law, not to get public records, but as a way to get attorney's fees for a particular law firm. And in this case, the law firm, the O'Boyle law firm, is run by Mr. O'Boyle's son, Jonathan O'Boyle. And when the insider said, yeah, what's really going on here is not a genuine effort to get public records and to use the law appropriately, it's really a windfall scheme so that these kinds of lawsuits can result in one thing, which is profits to the law firm. And the town was appropriate in using its lawyers to determine whether or not there was something going on here. And so the 11th Circuit has affirmed that decision. Mr. O'Boyle is still fighting with Ms. DiMartini, and they're going to seek probably additional review with the 11th Circuit and maybe to the United States Supreme Court. But this decision, this large, very page after page, is very helpful to the town, and I think we're happy with that.
And Mr. Hockman and his firm did a very good job on this case. It involves not illegal issues, complicated issues. I remember reading the brief that was submitted by Mr. Hockman. It was outstanding. This decision is a testament to his legal skills as the rightness of our cause. So thank you, Jeff, for your efforts in this regard. Just so you know, the 11th Circuit sits immediately before below the U.S. Supreme Court. That's how high this decision is. Now, I believe that Mr. O'Boyle has sought appeal, or at least reconsideration by the court in Bonn.
They filed last night.
Okay. So it's not over yet, but certainly.
Just if you're interested in going to the federal website and getting it, that's a 102-page document. So it's still going on, and we'll still work for the town.
Okay. Well, Jeff, thank you very much. I know you've got a busy schedule. Thanks for navigating the traffic to get up here and explain this.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, let's move back to reports, town manager, and update on the pickleball application and the little club.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. If you will recall from a meeting in November, the recommendation after the discussion of pickleball at that meeting was that we tabled the action for a month so that we could fully understand, you know, the impacts of the noise from, you know, the pickleball, both the regular pickleball and then the newer pickleball equipment. We also, and the mayor specifically said, you know, added, you know, the noise, the variable, we wouldn't know the noise until it's defined and easily quantifiable. So we had discussed hiring an independent noise analysis to be done, and we are still, you know, considering that. We have not hired one at this point in time. We have spoken to, since that meeting, we have spoken to members of the club and members of the Hillside House, and we, the mayor and myself, we'd like to conduct a demonstration from inside one of the residents at the Hillside House, preferably the closest one, which I believe is about 50 feet away. And so we're making arrangements to do that. The Little Club agreed that they really didn't expect us to have anything new on the agenda for today. That's the reason we're giving an update. And that they were good with moving this back to a time in the future, probably sometime in the springtime. And so that's where we're at today. I think the next step for us would be scheduling a time, working with the Hillside residents so that we can get a demonstration actually from inside one of the apartments.
Yeah, that's what we need to do, and the club has been very cooperative working with us.
Right.
They did a demonstration down at the B&T, which Mr. Dunham and I attended. They are agreeable to us doing another test, but from one of the Hillside condominiums, and of course proceeding with any other expert analysis that we might feel is appropriate. So all parties have been working together to try to work out something amicably.
So, are you saying that the pickleball, as we talked about it before, is still a viable alternative? I thought we had moved to the commissioners saying we do not think, after the visit to the B&T, where there was a demonstration, and I thought that the commissioners had said it's too loud. And then the Little Club said we're gonna try to look at a thing called spec tennis. And I thought that's where we were, that we were not gonna be talking about pickleball.
Yeah, Mr. Dunham, you spoke to the club on that.
Well, we did, subsequent to that meeting, and I asked, you know, because we had heard rumors that they were not gonna pursue the pickleball anymore, and he did not agree that they, with that statement, that they were now going to turn strictly to spec tennis. And so I was a little confused by that, but when the mayor and I went to the demonstrations down at the B&T, I mean, we saw that there were actually people playing tennis, so we could hear the tennis, then we saw the different versions of the pickleball, and we also listened to the spec tennis. So we got a good idea. I mean, we were not right by the courts. We were off probably at least 50 feet, and in fact, probably more than that. And so I think we've got a good idea in terms of the noise and then the actual sound that the various examples provided to us at that point in time. And then I think we confirmed at that time that we would like to meet or have a demonstration from a place at the Hillside House. And I think, did we not, didn't we talk to you about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so.
I was with her.
Right.
But I thought that you had said, to Mrs. Benoit and myself, when we met with you and the mayor, that the idea of pickleball was a dead issue.
Well, when I talked to him subsequent to those conversations, the president of the board didn't agree with that statement. So,
So as I understand it now, what is still under consideration is the pickleball as defined in the application that is before this commission, which is with the sniper paddle, the rubber ball, that sort of thing, not the original type of pickleball, but that modified version, as well as possibly spec tennis, but that frankly is not before this commission. So,
And we did talk about if they in fact would consider spec tennis, that they would probably need to amend their application to the town. So we did get into some conversation about that, but I think the next move probably would to try to have some kind of demonstration where we could.
and as we explained,
Right.
I think it would be inappropriate to rule on this without hearing it. You can't have it in place and then decide, yes, it's either acceptable or it's not. So, you know, as we talked about when we met, I would like to do it from one of the hillside apartments. I want to hear what it sounds like as best we can. You're not going to record out there, but, you know, we got some people to hit the ball around, and we'll see if can we hear it? What's it sound like? And I think that's a cautious and reasonable approach to take to this difficult problem. Sir?
Joseph Benoit from the St. Andrews Club. I think that is a switch from what, we were told before, and that's, we can move with whatever switches there are. It's good to look ahead for any test that might be a sound, a good test, but it's going to be quite lacking if you don't have a court there, if you don't have the pavement. Even with the spec tennis, it's difficult because there's just ground there now. But it may be that by doing that, there'll be enough knowledge that it's too noisy even without the full test to do that. I know, Mr. Town Manager, you mentioned, there's an agreement or a desire or at least a willingness to delay this, and to have it even, I think you said, into the spring. The one thing you would be concerned about is that we don't run into the same type of situation that a lot of us felt that we were put out of business on.
No, we're not.
You go into the summer and we're not here,
And I agree with you. We agree about that. So we're.
Yeah, let me address
Sure.
it. First of all, with respect to the sound, the benefit of Mr. Dunham and myself going to listen to the various pickleball, spec ball, soft pickleball demonstrations, we now have a pretty good understanding of where the noise comes from. And it doesn't come from the ground at all.
Right.
I mean, you don't hear it. It's the whack, whack, whack of the paddles. And that's the nature of the game. It's almost like a tennis volley. You're kind of going back and forth. It's a more rapid action. So the sound comes from the paddles. So if we can recreate that outside of the hillside, that's the noise we're looking for. Can we hear it or can't we hear it?
Sounds like a good way to at least get, to see if with that limited testing, it's too noisy or not. Our sound engineer did tell us that the test would be, somewhat lacking because of the fact of the pavement not being there. But I'm only repeating what our sound engineer.
I'm confident that would not be an issue. And as far as the timing, we're going to discuss it here, but I think what we want to do is, and it's, I think with the agreement of the club, is to postpone this decision until our April meeting. That's the second Friday in April. Most people haven't gone home by then. We're not going to be doing this in July or August. I think the decision will be made then. That gives us time to conduct this informal sound test, engage an expert if necessary. And let me give you my thoughts on the sound expert. I think it may be necessary. My concern is that we're just going to get someone who says, here's the decibel rating over this distance, and that's not gonna mean a lot to us. So I think I'm really more interested in hearing this myself.
Certainly, we try to cooperate in any way we can, but I would say that our sound engineers, they went way beyond decibel ratings. They went to the nature of human hearing and the repetitiveness and the pulsating tone of pickleball or spec tennis. They went to other issues. I know you don't want to take a lot of time this morning with regard to it. Easter is the 12th of April, so your meeting of decision is going to be right on the cusp of many people leaving the area. And that's going to present difficulties, because if you have a meeting and there's just a public discussion, at that time and so forth, it may be having a tight schedule. But I know you're trying to balance different things, but I just mention that from our viewpoint, because as you see, many of us are very, very concerned about this being so close, and
No, I got it.
having that.
And I hope you appreciate the approach we're taking.
Absolutely.
Really trying to get the right decision here, so.
And I think the residents are, wanting to cooperate. We've spent a lot of time, as the Little Club has, appreciate what they have done, but it, when we have a situation that 70% of the members of the Little Club come from outside the town, and we're talking about residents in the town trying to protect the value of their homes and trying to protect the peacefulness of their living, we're very concerned.
And I would just finish this up by saying that while the mayor and I were out there listening to these demonstrations, I mean, we weren't necessarily just listening for the loudest noise. I mean, we were looking at those things that your engineer said, like the repetitive nature on a smaller chord, it's back and forth, and the actual, sound that it made, not necessarily how loud it was, but the actual sound, the various,
And I think a sound engineer will go beyond the decibels.
Right.
And
We've watched YouTube videos, all this stuff. And I think at least the town manager and I have a pretty good understanding of how this game is played, whether it's spec tennis or any variation of pickleball. And now the question is really the
impact on
the noise level and the impact of that repetitive noise on it.
And I think we as residents very much appreciate the attention that you've given to this and the time and effort, both the city manager, yourself, and the commissioners, and appreciate that very much, that you're taking this as in such a detailed and serious way. Thank you.
And by the way, the time of April is really necessary to try to get an expert. They're not easy to find. It's gonna take some
So,
time,
take care.
that's all. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Liz Morris, I live at St. Andrews. I just am concerned when we do this demonstration that you actually have pickleball players, not like we had at the July meeting when we're just kind of, see, this doesn't, Pickleball is a noisy, fast game, and I just hope that we have, my husband plays pickleball, he'd be happy to volunteer to be one of the players. But anyway, just the batting back and forth, we actually need to hear that.
No, I agree, there was a difference between the
Yeah.
the tennis pros at the PLC hitting the ball
Right.
and the volunteers.
Yes, yes,
So,
good.
yeah, no, I got it.
Okay, we're on the same page.
So,
Hi, Scarby Smith from St. Andrews. Just one other consideration, it's not just the noise of the paddle, it's the people playing. And a lot of us are really enthusiastic and great shot and yell and scream, so it's not just the paddle noise, it's the people that are playing.
thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Debbie Cutler, and I just, along with the noise, and I've heard the noise from quite a distance in my house in Cape May, because there's one court, fortunately they only play one weekend a year, so I don't have any complaints, but I can hear it's a long way away from where this court is. But I also worry that our little street, Little Club Road, and children coming across through that gate, and with more traffic, and somebody racing to get a game, racing to be on time to get a pickleball, it just adds more depth, confusion, more people. And I don't think a lot of the regular people who go to, well, maybe, but a lot of people from Little Club do not play pickleball, much less play that tennis game. I think you'd have to be about 24 years old and a very good tennis player to be able to keep up with that. So anyway, I want to continue to think about all the ancillary, as Scarby said, all the other factors.
Well, thank you.
I think that's one reason we're kind of slowing this down, so we can take all of this into consideration.
I was gonna suggest we have a motion to continue this to April, but.
Yes, so we lack a quorum
We lack a
to
quorum on it.
be able to do that.
So perhaps we just take a consensus to do it. Joan, are you in agreement to
I am.
proceed slowly with this?
I am, and I would say to you all, don't worry about if you're not here and present, you can write letters. And we are very aware of the situation. Nothing's going to pass when you're not, when it's not a full vote. Because we're not trying to sneak anything by you all, okay? If we delay it till April.
Thank you.
We hear you and we will remember.
We'll be back.
I'm sure.
So the consensus is to reconvene this for a hearing and vote in April. Okay, let's move on to the next report, water main update.
Okay, the update is that the health department and FDOT permits, which we have to submit for the water main improvements that were made, have now been submitted. So, to both of those departments, they have just finished their 100% design package submittal to the town, and we'll be meeting next week to go over that with staff, both Baxter and Whitman and our staff. And then the water main improvements, as we discussed before, in County and Little Club Road, have been added as alternates A and B to respective bid package. And so once we've met and gone over the 100% submittals, then we can begin with the bid procedures, which will probably start in December, in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, by the end of the month.
Correct.
Very good. Any questions?
Yes. Debbie Calder again.
Yes.
Sure.
When do you, I didn't quite hear what you said, but when do you see work beginning or work finishing on Little Club? Is that another stage?
For the water main, okay, the actual construction period for the water mains on Little Club, and the other streets that have been identified would be around early fall of 2020.
And the underground wires?
Well, as we discussed earlier, I'm hoping that they will have all of their new, both AT&T and Comcast Cable will have all their new infrastructure in here and by the end of January, maybe end of February. But then the next step is, all those poles that go down Little Club Road. The next step is for AT&T and FP&L to come in and take down the old services. They won't do that until all of the new services are in place and working. Okay. Okay, the third item is, the resolution supporting efforts to remove state statute preemptions of local law. So you see resolution number 19-16, I'm sorry, that's the town of Palm Beach. What is our resolution number? Let's see.
That's the last resolution, right? 1916?
Okay, so it is 19-16.
Yep.
Okay, so this is, do you understand what we're doing here? What we're doing is we're not supporting the town of Palm Beach's efforts at prohibiting plastic straws or plastic bags or anything like that. What we're doing by passing this resolution is supporting a Senate bill that's in place now that would kind of overturn a state law at this point in time that preempts local towns and cities from passing their own, ordinances regarding the use of plastic bags and plastic straws. So we're just supporting Palm Beach's efforts at overturning the state's preemption of those of towns and cities to do that on their own.
Yeah, Mr. Dunham and I attended a mayor's meeting last week, the mayors within our District 89. And one of the main issues brought up by the mayors and town managers is the need to protect our home rule status. The state chips away at it every chance they can. And that's not a good thing. We need to protect our own ability to make our own ordinances responsive to our own residents, whether it's Palm Beach's desire to restrict plastic straws or our efforts to just enhance the beauty of our town and limit development. So what we're doing is supporting the notion of home rule and authority for the municipal governments vis-a-vis state mandates. So that's all this is.
That's all this is.
All right, we'll get to that resolution later on in the agenda.
Yes, and finally, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to discuss with you, as you know, this time of the year, every year we have, those rising tides and our high groundwater in our town, and like we have the last couple of days, some significant rain events. So what does that do? It makes the core area, especially the north side of the core area, the Polo, there's water standing, on the streets all the time. And so, we're working on ideas to, try to circumvent that. But one thing that can be done is with our rights-of-ways in those areas that are already drenched, in some cases, they're being watered 5 days a week. And so that kind of contributes to the problem of water standing on the side of the road. So the town does have ordinances or landscape irrigation regulations. And so what I'd like to, and basically what that is it identifies, the time and how many times during a week that people are allowed to water their lawns. And so what I'm proposing to do is to send out a very friendly letter to all the residents, just reminding them, some of the reasons why the roads are always wet, and that, watering lawns contributes to that, especially at this time of the year, and that we'd like to, people to, along with the friendly letter, we would probably have a copy of our ordinance that sets forth the regulations, and just ask people to adhere to the watering regulations.
Just to, I don't want to make their life difficult, but just to follow up on some of the areas down here where the low lying, maybe to contact the residents personally.
Oh, it definitely is part of the.
Because
yes.
it's always wet.
I know, and we know some of those houses, so that would be included in this.
Okay,
But
because sometimes people get those notices and they think,
I-
oh, my lawn
I
people
understand.
have
I
taken
know.
care of it.
Well,
No,
that's
they're
part of
not
the
even
problem.
aware of it.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
And so, maybe somehow in the letter I can remind them that sometimes they don't pay attention to
Yeah.
what the
Okay,
regulations are.
just to make sure that the
Right.
resident knows what the lawn people are.
Yeah, there are some that we've already contacted.
We had a couple, we still have a couple houses on Polo that do 7 in the morning.
Twice a
and
day?
night. Yeah, they're on twice a day.
Wow.
Yeah,
Which is a little much.
yeah,
Unless it's like,
New.
May, right before the rainy season.
right, and I agree with you. There are some people that don't even know. We've found out after talking, they don't even know how often their sprinklers are going.
Yeah.
So
And
it's going to be a friendly reminder, and we'll approach it, you know, in a friendly way. The ordinance here sets forth the police get involved, and we've got fines and all
Yeah,
this
well, I
sort
don't
of
want,
thing.
I
So
hope we're
we're
not
not,
gonna get
we're
defining
not,
people,
we're
but
not going
just,
there, but, we'd like to at least take an approach and address it. It's just, you know, in my almost 3 years, we've not even addressed it with people. So.
yeah.
Now, we did have somebody that I think looked at our agenda and talked to Renee, and they said, well, gosh, you have water restrictions that date all the way back to 2017. And what we had on the website was a restriction from the South Florida Water Management District back in the summer of 2017. I said, we need to take that one down. That one doesn't apply anymore. But that level of restriction that they had actually kind of mirrors our own ordinance anyway. So South Florida, you know, as you all know, is known to, you know, establish water restrictions when we're in a drought. So, but we have our own ordinance too. Anyway, just wanted to give that's for your information.
Water's expensive too.
Correct.
Right, Renee? Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dunn. ARPB meeting, next one is December 18th at 8:30 a.m. Anyone who wishes to attend.
That's a typo, sorry, it's the 19th.
Sorry, 19th at 8:30 a.m. Finance Director's Report. John?
Okay, kind of here. Yes, this is, if you look at this report and you look at the balance sheet, here's where in the negative, you know, on a lot of these line items in terms of revenues. But you gotta remember, we're at the beginning quarter of our new year, and we're only now beginning to get some disbursements from all of our different resources that provide revenue to the town. So this is a very normal balance sheet that you see in front of you. I just got a $100,000 disbursement this week from Ann Gannon, so we thank Ann a lot for that. I don't see anything unusual about this and would recommend that you approve it.
Any questions? Any comments on the water usage report as well? Kind of covered that. All right, we'll accept those as submitted. And we move on to the police chief's report.
We request that the report be accepted as submitted. However, I'd like to explain a couple of items on here. The grand theft and the petty theft items were both what's commonly known now as porch fires. We'd like to let the community be aware that it is that time of year that we need to be a little more cautious and careful as to how we secure our belongings. And these porch pirates are out there, and they obviously found Gulfstream as well. Fortunately, it wasn't real very big items that were taken, but they did strike at 2 different locations in town. And I'd also like to remind people to, secure your cars and your homes as well, and use your alarm systems and that, all your security methods. And most of all, anything suspicious, don't hesitate to call us. I'd rather show up for nothing than show up and have to find that you've been a victim of a crime.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? We'll accept the report then as submitted and explained. Moving on to hourly rate modification for the law firm of Jones Foster. Mr. Nazar and Mr. Dunn.
Okay, yes, in your package you see the letter from Mr. Randolph, kind of outlining their firm's current rates for their hourly rates for their services. They're asking to give consideration to increasing their rate from $250 an hour to $275 an hour, and then setting a rate of $325 for their
to the agreement that they have with the town of Palm Beach, which has a separate litigation rate. However, the litigation rate for the town of Palm Beach is higher than what they're offering us.
Yeah, Jones Foster has been our town attorneys for many years. Their rates have always been, very low, compared to other firms and their expertise. So, I believe that this is a fee increase that is deserved and we should approve it.
Lower than mine on both rates.
That's why we haven't hired you.
I mean, but our point is, I wouldn't say hesitate to use the term discounted, but because of, oftentimes with practicing law, representing municipalities, sometimes it's very time intensive, sometimes it's not. A lot of times it's very time intensive. So they you know, the rates are kind of allocated accordingly. Plus it's public dollars too as well, which kind of factors in. So.
Okay.
Any other comments? Is there a motion to approve the request for fee increases that Jones Foster has set forth in the September 2019 letter?
I'll make that motion to approve the rate increase from $2.50 to $2.75.
And for the litigation
And
matters?
for litigation matter, $3.25 per hour. Effective October 1st, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second?
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley,
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. We move on to resolution number 19-15. Ms. Taylor?
This is a resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Gulfstream, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between the Florida Division of Emergency Management and the Town of Gulfstream to provide emergency aid and assistance in the event of a disaster or emergency. And this is presented for adoption the 13th day of December, 2019.
Resolution number 19-15 has been read. Are there any comments? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve resolution 19-15.
A second.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. And moving to resolution number 19-16 is the one regarding home rule that Mr. Dunham explained during his reports. Ms. Taylor?
A resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Gulfstream, Palm Beach County, Florida, strongly encouraging the state legislature to approve Senate Bill 182 and any companion House bills relating to the preemption of recyclable and polystyrene materials by amending Section 403.7033 and Section 500.90 Florida statutes, repealing the preemption of local laws regarding the use or sale of single-use plastic bags and polystyrene materials. And this is also being presented for adoption this 13th day of December, 2019.
Resolution number 19-16 has been read.
Motion to approve resolution 19-16.
Second.
Ms. Taylor?
Commissioner Orthwein,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stanley.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes.